Okay.
Welcome to the house. Today in the house, we have CJ Kuseler. He is a marketing communication coach. He's a business growth consultant. He is a copywriting strategist and also a best-selling author and much more. So welcome to the house and thank you for being here, CJ.
Thank you, Paula. It's a pleasure to be here.
So please share with us a little bit about your background so we get to know you more.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, my introduction into business, I would say, was rather unorthodox. I felt a call on my life to pursue business when I thought really I would pursue music and I would pursue art and youth leadership. And now I'm seeing a merging of those worlds. But at that time, I was really not exposed to too much in business. And I felt a call. I felt like God had a call on my life to say, I'm calling you to business. And when I heard that and when I sensed that, I felt like you got the wrong guy. This isn't for me. The next thing I know, I found myself starting out in a sales career, selling industrial cutting tools. Got my first business card. All those kind of like benchmark kind of um, roadmap along the way to starting into business. You start typically, I think, in sales, and that's a big part of business, and then being exposed to marketing and those kind of things. And so along the way, along my sales journey, I started to get into things like personal development. A lot of people, I'm sure your audience is familiar with Anthony Robbins. You talk about neuroencoding, so NLP, NAC, neuro associative conditioning, and thought leadership, and those kind of things, and found myself in a passion for personal development, and along the way, I started to get a desire for entrepreneurship and wanted to know what that was more about. Because when you're in sales, but you're working for someone else, and you have a desire to be an entrepreneur, there's a level of autonomy that you start to crave, and to look for things like, how can I do this for myself rather than building a business for someone else? How can I build for myself and then build other people up? And so that started to become part of my goal. And I think anyone who's been on the entrepreneurial journey long enough, you understand that it's not a straight path to success, that there's a winding road, there's ups and downs, and these kind of things. And when I entered into the entrepreneurial journey, education wasn't really on the forefront of my mind. I only had my grade 12 at that time, and that was okay. But I found myself in a position where things weren't going as expected, and I had an opportunity to return back to school. And so I went back and did the thing that I thought I would not do. And I got my undergraduate degree in business. And that was a good part of the journey. I learned a lot there. But I also realized that in that place that most of my professors were broke, and they didn't lead necessarily the life of the entrepreneurs that I'd met up to that point. Then I became exposed to the marketing world, really internet marketing and copywriting and communication and changing people's lives from the stage. So Tony Robbins isn't the only one who does it. There's other people, business leaders, thought leaders. And along the way, just a little over about 12, 13 years ago, I met my copywriting mentor. I heard him speak from the stage, Ray Edwards, about copywriting, and he shared his faith. And it really impacted me how you could live in integrity with your faith and in business and see the two worlds come together. And that made a huge impact on me. And then that's where I started to ask, what is this copywriting? What is this communications thing? And as an artist, as a musician, as a poet, as a wordsmith, spoken word artist, that actually appealed to me. How can I work with words in the business world? And so that began my journey on exploring that along the way. Fast forward, super fast forward, came to a place where I got an opportunity to meet him again. The first time I heard him, I actually had the opportunity to have lunch with him and to ask some questions. And a few years later, I entered one of his copywriting programs and got into the process where I would eventually become a certified copywriter under his brand. And yeah, I guess you could say the rest is history, where I've learned, part of communicating from the stage and communicating from the page, and helping other people do that along the way, whether it be personal development or professional development. And today I'm working with two beautiful people, Shanae and Alejandro, who and how you were exposed to myself on our show. Believe in yourself, believe in your business. And really, it is about leadership and and personal and professional development is about believing in yourself and believing in your business and marrying those two things together. So hopefully that gives a little bit of insight into where I'm from and who I am today.
Yes, that's beautiful because uh, you share a tool that a lot of us need, and it's, language, because with language we can create. So as a copywriter, is like it is essential uh, to share your tools. Like you say, you're serving. So you're doing an amazing job, by the way. I admire your work. I admire you. You're serving hard, and that you follow your calling, because sometimes we're so stubborn that we don't know it is, that is the right decision, because you think that it's not me, I'm not qualified, I don't have the degree, I don't have, the strategies or everything that I need to follow the path, but you went for it. So that's amazing. So
Yeah.
as a leader, uh, what is your role? Like, what is your, like, your responsibility?
Well, that's an interesting question because I think we think of leadership as being based in position, but I like the idea. Two things that I get from John Maxwell. He says, one, if you think you're leading and nobody is following, you're just taking a walk, and that's always funny. But even people in positional leadership, you think you're leading and people aren't really following your thinking, and that's, I think, where micromanagement comes in, and then there grows resentment because you have to follow because it's based on position and title. But I think the truest, purest form of leadership is really a personal leadership where you lead by example, you lead with heart, you lead with who you are. And so I see my role as a leader as another idea that comes from John Maxwell is the 360-degree leader, that it's upward, sideways, and downward. It's all directional. You lead in your life, and this comes back to believing in yourself and believing in your business. Again, that how you do one thing is how you do everything. So where you lead in your life is how are you leading your life? How do you lead other people to believe in themselves? How do you lead other people, whether it's your family or your friends? Do you lead other people to do what's best in their lives? And this actually translates to whether you're an entrepreneur or you're working in career, is how do you lead other people that you work with, work for, or people who respond to you? How do you lead them to live their best life and do their best in their work? And I find that with myself, even with my clients, when I talk about leading with copy or leading with communication, it's really imparting a belief in my client, in who they are intrinsically, in how they show up in their business, as well as how they show up in their message. Because how they communicate then to their clients, it's a little bit meta, but how they communicate to their clients and say, this is who I am, this is how I can serve you. That's how I serve, that's how I lead. And I think of leadership as service, really showing up in such a way that I'm supporting the people who that I serve, to serve the people that they're doing work for, or whether it's a product or a service that they bring to the world, is helping them show up in a way that it's not just about creating a message, because you can create a message and it's just full of hot air, it's full of fluff, unless that's exactly who they are. And so the idea of that communication really is helping them to lead a life and to lead a business that is such that really grows them, makes them bigger, gives them bigger impact by creating a bigger possibility for their clients as well. So I think leadership is really truly about serving and showing up in such a way that it makes life and business bigger and better for the people that you come in contact with.
That's beautiful. Yes. So what are some of the values that you adopt? That sometimes we have to remind ourselves that these are the values we stand for whenever we're going through a storm.
Sure. I think one of the things that are really most important is integrity, being true to who you are and what you offer, and not swaying from that. And sometimes that means saying no, and then saying yes to the right things, even when it's hard. Another thing that I really believe in is radical generosity, showing up, being open with your time, being open with your thoughts, serving in a big way, even when it's beyond the scope of what it seems like that I'm not really paid for this. But if there's a way that you can serve and be and show up, I think that's really very important. Another thing is transparency and humility. So showing up and and just like saying no is saying, I don't know. I don't know the answer, but if it's something that I can find out for you, let me go and check into that. And then being transparent about that and just being humble enough to say, hey, I don't know everything. And we're all in process, right? We're all in process. So I think these are key fundamentals for me. Being loving, generous, caring, these kind of things are very important. The human side of leadership, I think it's a lost art for a lot of people. You think it's mechanical, but it's not. It's really about loving, serving, and giving and showing up so that other people can show up.
That's beautiful. Have you heard, I'm pretty sure you've heard about the Great Resignation here lately that happened back in September 2021. What are your thoughts? How can we improve? I mean, do you think it is a matter of leadership skills? Do you think it's a matter of mindset?
Well, that's a very interesting question. And I in no way would say that I think I'm an expert in this, but I think this ties back to what I just mentioned is really the humanity. I think people are leaving because they don't feel cared for. I mean, we live in a different world now. Things are changing. The new normal, that things are different. And I think the past few years there's been a wake up call. And this is why the great resignation is, because people are waking up and saying, hey, what's actually happening? What matters to me? And what do I want? And I think going to just, saying, okay, mechanically, what is mindset versus what truly is a mindset that adopts love and care and concern, and having conversations like, what matters to you? How can you serve this job? Because a lot of people the resignation is that people don't care about serving something that isn't serving them. Right. And so I think it comes down to, what can I do for you? How can I care for you? How can I watch out for you? What matters to you? And how can this work so that it's not just an ideal, say, what's win-win, the idea of a win-win situation. It truly must have the heart of, I care for you. Because if you expect someone to care for their career and it's outside of perhaps the scope or purview of who they think they intrinsically are, then they're not going to care. So there has to be a tie to they're cared for and seeing how this fits within their greater vision of who they are and how they can impact the world.
Beautiful. Yeah. With your skills and strategies, how do you inspire a team for high performance?
The feedback that I've got always comes back to, you show up authentically, you show up in transparency, you share your weaknesses. And I think when it comes to team, there's a lot of idea that, you can be a lone wolf and just do your own thing and you have your expertise and this is what I'm good at. All those things are really important to understand your strengths. But I think within team is understanding each other's weaknesses and understand how the two things can fit together. This is where my strengths fit with your weaknesses and your strengths fit with my weaknesses. And I think the inspiration comes from saying, it's okay to say I'm weak in this area. It's okay to say, I don't have it all together. I don't have all the strengths. I think that vulnerability and openness creates a communication and intimacy within a team, that high performing teams are open to one another. They become like family. You see it, whether it's in sports or you see it in music, the bands that, play together, stay together, these kind of things. I think it's really built on the core of true heart-centered communication and relationship. Yeah.
That is true. Yeah. Whereas where we can create an environment that is like, I'm going to push your limits because I try, I believe in you,
Yes.
and encourage them to go to the next level. Because sometimes we need somebody in our lives to believe, believe in us, because sometimes we don't believe in ourselves. So that is beautifully, if we can create an environment where we can be humble enough and say, like, I'm sorry, I'm scared, like, please repeat it again. Can I have the instructions again? Did you mean this or did you mean that? Like, have that environment. That's what a picture, whenever you were describing uh, how to create a team with high performance. So yes, definitely, like, have a safe environment where we can just be vulnerable enough to be like, I don't feel ready for this task. So yes. What has been your biggest challenge as a leader?
Uh, well, yeah, just before we go to that, something that I'm thinking in regard to the last point is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Oh,
And I think coming now back to this, because it ties together, and that's why I wanted to bring that back to that, is self-care. And I think really self-leadership and self-development and leading yourself. I think before we can lead others, we need to be able to lead ourselves and to have positive self-talk. And this is what I think my biggest challenge is as a leader, and this is an ongoing thing, is that positive self-talk, saying, this is something that I can do. This is something that's possible. This is something, then it becomes, this is something that we can do. This is something that's possible. And it's an ongoing growth thing. And that comes back to another principle that I found years ago, and that's the Japanese principle of Kaizen, which means continuous improvement. It's getting that little bit better every single day and believing that it's possible to do that. And even if it's a little bit better every day, and to tell yourself, hey, I can do this, I can achieve this. So in the midst of that and the positive self-talk, some of the biggest challenges I've faced personally is mental health challenges, especially the past couple of years. This has actually grown rampant exponentially, is mental health in terms of anxiety and depression. And I think that's also a big part of the Great Resignation, is people coming face to face with existential questions like, am I where I should be, and where am I going, and what am I doing with my life? And so you begin to ask the questions that you feel, am I satisfied with where I am? And I think along the way, that's been some of my biggest challenge, is facing depression and sadness, and feeling like, what's happening in the world? What's happening in my life? How can I move forward? And I think having the right questions and then having the right people. I know I've been very blessed to be surrounded with beautiful friends. They say you are the sum of the five closest people around you. And I have amazing friends around me. I'm also very conscientious about being in demand for coaching and masterminds and self-development, personal development, and leadership development. So always investing in myself. And that too is a mindset. And it comes back to, if you believe in yourself, and if you believe in yourself, you'll be in the business of believing in yourself and your business, that you'll push yourself forward and you'll invest in yourself. You'll say yes to yourself. You'll say yes to better friendships. You'll say yes to better communication. You'll say yes to better business relationships. And I think that's the biggest ongoing challenge, is to say, I deserve to do well, and I deserve to make a difference in this world. And I get to do that. And so that's an ongoing thing. I know there was a point where it was very low, being in a place of depression and anxiety and sadness, and having overcome that and coming through. It's really about surrounding yourself with wisdom. There's an old proverb that says, in the abundance of counselors, there is safety, and wisdom makes it possible to succeed. And so that comes from surrounding your people with, walk with the wise and become wise. And so whether that's your friendships, or whether that's reading the right books, listening to podcasts, or going to webinars and seminars, investing in coaching, it's really about pouring in and overcoming that way. So I think that's some of my biggest challenges, is really thought leadership. Because if you can't deal with your thoughts, and you can't deal with surrounding yourself with the right people, I think that's anybody's truest challenge, is believing in yourself, believing that you can, and then putting in the steps to do it. But if you don't believe you can do it, you won't take the steps.
Thank you for sharing. Yes, I mean the depression and anxiety has been uh, more than outrageous here in the last couple of years. So I am so glad that you have the right questions, because it is all about strategies.
Absolutely.
For anybody out there that is dealing with, depression and anxiety, there are strategies that, I mean, we have to implement. They're not going to happen for us, but we have to make it happen for us to get out of that state where it's like, this is not me, I don't want it. And I'm glad you have the right support system, like you said, your friends. I totally agree with you that we are, or we become, that we develop characteristics of the five most closest friends that we hang around with. So that is beautiful that we are in this world of self-development. It's an honor for me to get to know you more, through this interview. So I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to share with us?
Uh, yeah, honestly, for me, the foundation of who I am and what makes it possible for me to keep pushing forward, the self-development and the belief in myself really comes from my faith. And I've heard this over and over and over again from the most successful people in the world. Jim Rohn said it, Anthony Robbins says it, and how we say it and our approach may be different. Even my mentor, Ray Edwards, says it, is really, if it wasn't for my faith in Jesus Christ, is that's the faith that's impacted me. If it wasn't for him, and if it wasn't for having a faith outside of myself, I wouldn't have moved forward in so many things in my life. I have so much gratitude for that faith and the people, and realizing that the people who come around me, it's not just visualization or doing these things, as much as those things are important. It's really having faith. And if I would encourage anyone to pursue anything, is pursue God, because in God, there is where you find your purpose and the creation of who you are and who you're meant to be. And as you pursue that, you can pursue your calling and become all that you were called to be. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yes. I mean, yeah, our spiritual life and build a relationship with God so that we can continue to grow, right?
Yes.
And tuning to what our purpose is, because if we listen really close, he'll guide us. So
Absolutely.
that is beautiful. I know you wrote a book, I think, here recently. Do you want
Yes.
to share a little bit about your book?
Sure. Well, it's poetry, and so it's a fierce devotion. I did it with a friend, David Lee Martin, in the UK, and we both wrote a collection of poems to inspire people. There's some marketing stuff in there that I talk about, marketing from a poet's perspective, but really about life and the different things that we go through. And yeah, it's called Fierce Devotion. It's a collection of poetry, and really, as a wordsmith, my passion is to inspire people. So whether it's in my career, or whether it's in poetry, or whether it's in music, or whether it's a worship leader, or whether it's creating songs. I also just completed a few songs, and working on some post production for a short album as well.
Awesome.
Whatever route that communication comes, that words is about inspiration and about changing lives and making the world a better place. So, yeah.
That's
So, thank you for asking.
awesome. You're welcome. Now, how can we find you? If there's anybody here in our audience that says, "Oh, I want to know and learn more about CJ," where can we find you?
I think the two best places, you can find me on LinkedIn. Just look up my name, CJ Kuseler. And you can also find me on Instagram at CJ Approved. Or you can find me on TikTok. I play a bit there as well as CJ Copy. Any of those platforms are fine. You reach out to me, and you can find me on my website at cjapprovedcoaching.com. And if you want to connect professionally, either there or LinkedIn, any of those places is fine. Yeah, pretty
That's
simple.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here today. Before we go, please, I know you shared tons of information and value and wisdom with us already, but what would it be like? What can you share with us? Like, where can we focus on to begin to create a brighter future?
Well, I think that's a pretty wide question. It really depends on where we're coming from. It's like saying, hey, what's the best book I should read? Well, I think one person's best book in this season may be for another person, they're not ready for it. I think really the faith aspect is the most important aspect that I would say. But really think about what's what's an area that I can get 1% better on today. There's so many areas. You could look at your faith, you could look at your family, you could look at your finances, you could look at your fitness, you could look at your faculty, your mindset. There's so many areas. But I think one area is to really just say, where can I improve? How can I get better? And if you're looking at career, sometimes it's the most unexpected things. Sometimes in your career and your finances, it's your heart, it's your attitude that's the problem. It's not money. It's not your boss. It's not your client. It's what's inside. So I would say, if you want to catapult and create a brighter future, take a look inside. And honestly, prayer is seek God, because we're all coming from a different point. But just be willing to be open, to be teachable. And I think the answers come that way. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule. It's if we want to grow, it's available to us. And so ask the questions, how can I get better today? And be open.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. I hope you all are getting a phrase, a word, an aha moment, or a piece of information from today that you can implement into your life to create a brighter future. Thank you so much for being here, for listening to us. High five, CJ. High five. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Paulo. It's a pleasure just being here and chatting with you. And if there's any way I can serve you,